Good morning, Lego fans, and welcome to a very special episode of MOC Roundup. Special in the fact that, it's taken me a long time to actually make this video. It was one of the very first videos that I've ever wanted to make because, well, it's the very first MOC that I've ever made. But things kind of got out of hand with current events, as it were, so I got preoccupied with other MOCs that I was making on a daily basis, so I didn't really get around to making this video for kind of logistics reasons, as it were. I got preoccupied in other things, but now I'm back to it, and now I would like to show you my very first MOC. So here we have the Commodore Vic 20. It was the second home personal computer produced by the Commodore Company, released in 1981, and was the very first one to sell over 1 million units. In fact, it was almost instrumental for introducing an entire generation to video gaming. And using a special port on the side, which I'll share with you in a minute, it was able to read cassette tapes, at least read the magnetic strip in cassette tapes, and it was able to play back a video game for you. Thankfully, because this was the 80s, it was before any piracy law of any kind, so basically you could copy from your friends' cassette tapes. So really, that was really quite an interesting time. Shame it was a little bit before my era. But anyway, I digress. The point being of this entire video was the fact that I saw this shape in the thrift store, and I thought, you know what? I could make that shape in Lego. Just to show you basically my very first MOC. This was produced in Lego Digital Designer, which was the precursor to today's stud.io, which is actually infinitely easier to use. Back in the day when I made this thing, you had to build the item, then use the part list to then copy that over to Bricklink, and then only then you could buy the whole thing. Now you can make the whole thing in stud.io, and hit a button, boom, it's on your Bricklink, boom, you can buy it. Easy peasy. But anyway, I digress a little bit. From what you can see from my little model here, I have the keyboard as well as the F1 through 8 over here on the side, as well as the nameplate and the on-off light, which is really kind of cool. So I will switch now to the side. So on this relatively blank side, all we have is the control port, the on-off switch, and the AC input, which I have represented here, if focus could work, using a couple of different tiles and the semi-round tile. So this hinge here is only on one stud on the other side. A little precarious, but at least it works. And I'm really proud of this angle here that I was able to achieve with the hinge and this sort of wing shape here. And I was able to do that using a couple of different building techniques, using the 1x1 studs nut on tops. Basically, I believe it's a plate. Using that and then two of these wing plates on the side, I was able to get the right thickness and get it flush with the side. Before that, it was a rather awkward conglomeration of parts that I had before that. So I'm rather pleased with this end result. Let's move on to the back. So here on the back we have this huge cartridge slot, which I assume you could slot in most of your cartridges if you were to slot cartridges here. But inside this port is also the channel selector and the TV connector. Next to this we have the audio video connector and the serial port. This one's a serial port. Here's the cassette player interface and the user port. So I had a lot of fun with this on the back of my model. As you can see, I had a gray rail kind of run in the inside of this and on the inside of these two slots here on the side, whereas I had to use a gray plate on the further in on the inside of this model. You can see it's a little further back than these slots here, which makes sense because they're cartridge slots and user ports, and this is just a cartridge or a cassette interface port. So it really kind of made sense that you'd have to plug something in there, at least in my head. So as you can see there, it's really kind of a close approximation anyway. I really enjoy the fact that these the audio video ports here are basically just a Technic piece that has two little slot holes in it. It's really kind of fun. Anyway, let's move on to the other side. So there's actually nothing on this side, so there's another blank side for you. We can see that this side is actually a little bit more structurally sound than the other one because these are actually plates that hold this hinge in place. And as I mentioned before, that was actually able to give me this satisfying angle on the front that was kind of indicative of this this model. I think it got pretty close anyway. So I had a little bit more fun with it. I was able to doodle what the inside of these things looked like, and prying off the top, I actually kind of approximated what the motherboard would be on the inside, as well as a couple of the computing chips, and I believe this is the video processor. I'm not really 100% sure on the parts on the inside, at least, but at least I was able to have fun with it. And if you were to open it up, you would have a little fun surprise, like, wow, you didn't have to go into all that detail. But as I mentioned before, those were a couple of the rails in the back there, and the gray piece there, that's actually the cassette port, is covered up by this very neat grill piece. So that's really fun, that I was able to hide it instead of it being very obvious in the back. Yeah, so I used quite a bit of these grill pieces to show off the kind of, I guess they're air intakes or whatnot, as well as a few of the detailed spots on the inside here. So that's really kind of fun. I had a lot of fun building this whole thing. It was very satisfying to get a lot of parts that came in through Bricklink. Again, this is back in the ye olde days, so it was very piecemeal. So that said, I got like half the model, and then I realized I needed more pieces and a little bit more. Things weren't going to fit just right, like I thought they would on the model, so I had to modify it a little bit. The things really turned out just the way I really wanted it. I wanted a little model of this really old machine that I never owned as a child because it was a little bit before my time. But you know what? It's really fun just to remake things and have fun and see if you can just build something out of the blue, you know? So that's all I really have for you today. Finally, I got this video off of my to-do list, so hooray! And yeah, so if you'd like to see more mocks and things of me babbling about random old things, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.